Francis Turretin builds his theology with architectural precision. In Topic 3, he pivots from question 21 to 22. 21 deals strictly with God's power, his physical capacity to act. 22 turns to a distinct category, dominion, shifting focus squarely to his legal authority over creation. Recognizing raw cosmic power without a framework of authority is terrifying. Before Turretin can explore what God does with his power, he must meticulously define God's right to use it. Within this discussion of dominion, Turretin introduces a phrase that creates immediate intellectual friction: God's absolute right. To modern ears, claiming God has an absolute right to do as he pleases sounds like an arbitrary, unfair cosmic tyrant operating on sheer whim. Turretin anticipates this. By placing this definition here, he is doing quiet, foundational groundwork far in advance of his most complex arguments. He is preparing the structural support for doctrine of predestination, specifically the mechanics of election and reprobation. If he fails to define the exact parameters of divine dominion right now, his entire later defense of predestination will collapse under the accusation of lawless caprice. Turretin derives the right to rule directly from objective, ontological reality. The first source of this dominion is the surpassing excellence of God's nature. This follows an ordinary logical principle of order. A being that is naturally more excellent inherently possesses authority over the less excellent, and nothing in existence approaches the perfection of the Creator. The second and more decisive foundation block is radical dependence. Even the greatest human ruler exercises power over subjects who already exist. An emperor manages a population. He does not generate their physical substance. Divine authority operates in a different category. Every creature owes not just its origin, but its moment-to-moment existence entirely to God. He actively knits them together in real time. If the Creator stopped sustaining the universe for a fraction of a second, it would instantly vanish. This total, constant dependence grants God an unparalleled claim. His dominion is a factual, structural necessity of existence, grounded in reality. From this ontological bedrock, Turretin builds upward, dividing God's sovereignty into two distinct vantage points. The first vantage point is the ordinate right. This is the revealed order. It encompasses the law and the gospel, clearly laying out human duties, the structure of justice, and the consequences attached to obedience and disobedience. The second vantage point is the absolute right. This describes God's authority to determine the fate of his creatures based entirely on his free good pleasure, without owing any external party an accounting. Turretin treats these as two distinct lenses viewing the same sovereign dominion. Understanding this bifurcation allows theology to reconcile the strict rules God has revealed to humanity with the sovereign choices he keeps hidden. It is the absolute right that causes friction. To modern ears, making decisions without owing anyone an explanation sounds identical to lawless caprice. But in Turretin's rigid scholastic vocabulary, the word absolute has a precise meaning: total independence from external constraints or outside laws. It does not mean freedom from God's own internal, unchanging character. To ground this, Turretin uses a secular analogy: the royal pardon. When a human ruler exercises clemency, they act beyond the strict letter of the ordinary law. Yet granting a pardon is not a lawless act, and it does not oppose justice. It is a legitimate exercise of higher authority. God's absolute right operates the same way. It sits above the revealed law, but it is structurally impossible for it to contradict his own unchanging holiness and wisdom. Unconstrained by anything outside himself is entirely different from being unconstrained by his own nature. This distinction dismantles the charge of divine arbitrariness. The conceptual architecture of Turretin's dominion is now complete, and the structural prep work of question 22 is finished. He now applies the ultimate payload: election and reprobation. These doctrines exert intense theological pressure, relying entirely on God's free good pleasure. But because of the meticulous definitions laid out in advance, the structural framework holds. It does not crack. Because the right is absolute, God owes no external explanation. But because it is internally constrained by his holiness, it aligns perfectly with ultimate justice. By grounding divine dominion in objective reality rather than whim, Turretin proves that when God acts on his absolute right, he is not abandoning justice. He is exercising a sovereignty as perfect as his own nature.